the Paris trial over a smear campaign against France's First Lady. 10 people are on trial in Paris, accused of cyberbullying France's First Lady, Brigitte Macron. Prosecutors say they amplified a false claim that she was born male and used her brother's name, a rumor that spread widely online and crossed the Atlantic. Brigitte Macron, who is 72 years old, filed a complaint after years of harassment that her daughters say damaged her health and family life. The defendants say they were just joking, reposting others, or engaging in legitimate debate about public figures. Questionable whether this is legitimate debate. This case now tests where France draws the line between speech and targeted abuse. The court will decide whether the online campaign worsened her living conditions and harmed her mental or physical health. A verdict is expected on January 5th. If they're found guilty, the defendants face prison time and fines. There is also a U.S. angle. Over the summer, Macron's filed a defamation suit in Delaware against commentator Candace Owens for promoting the same claims. Whatever the outcome in Paris, the message is clear. Viral lies can have real-world consequences, and courts in multiple countries are being asked to say so on the record. What's the real message here? If you lie about people often enough, loud enough, and smear them, and try to destroy their lives psychologically, you might win, but there might be a real payback. And the payback is coming for all the people who just relish in smearing the First Lady of France. Not a moment too soon. Let's dig a little deeper here. Yes, I favor free speech in general. Everybody does in general. But there are always exceptions. You can't say free speech in a crowded movie theater and shout fire, because that could result in people being trampled to death. You can't out spies working for your country, because it could result in death of people working to protect the safety of your country, and it could harm international relations. So everyone agrees there have to be some limits to free speech. If it's just comedy, saying, oh, if you want to say, hey, TJ looks like a 95-year-old Pee Wee Herman, okay, there's nothing wrong with that if you think it's funny, and it is a little bit funny. And it might hurt my feelings, although not really. But I don't have a problem with something like that. But this thing, going after Brigitte Macron again and again and again, daily for years, it does seem to cross some line, whether you want to call it slander, whether you want to call it defamation. Again, there are other rules in every country about limiting free speech. Not everyone has the same attitude of free speech as the United States. But even here, you can't just say, my opponent's pen is filled with poison. I'm Bic Pen, and this is Schick Pen. And if you buy this Schick Pen, the poison will leak out and kill you. Buy my pen. You can't just make up lies defaming a commercial product. Now, Brigitte Macron is not a commercial product. She is a human being. To be clear, there is zero evidence she was born a male. It's all just made up nonsense. Now, normally my attitude, my advice, if I were advising the Macron family, and I do not advise them, although I do advise various prime ministers and presidents around the world, leaders of state, a few queens, who occasionally have issues like this. My advice normally is just ignore it. These are a few nuts. And they're really stupid people, and the only people who listen to them are really stupid people. The problem is, this has such a huge audience. Candace Owens, not someone I listen to regularly, but by some accounts, she is number 2 in the whole U.S. English-speaking world, at least, for podcast listenership. So she has millions and millions and millions of views. And again, if you've never heard of Candace Owens, and let's say you are over 40, and you're in the United States. Imagine if Dan Rather or Walter Cronkite or someone who's the news anchor of one of the top newscasts when you were growing up just said again and again and again overnight, Ronald Reagan is really a drag queen. And they just said that every night. At some point, you'd be like, well, this is crazy. This is garbage. But if it's said every single night, would it start to change people's perceptions? Let's look at some more of the facts here. Again, there's a trial going on in France. France does not have the same First Amendment privileges to say mostly whatever you want. 8 men and 2 women accused of sexist online harassment. penalties could be up to 2 years in prison and fine. I don't know what the right penalty is for this. At some level, you have to be a truly sick person to spend a significant portion of your life, daily time, just spreading stupid stuff about people you don't know, you've probably never met, and just making up stuff really with the intention of causing them harm. I mean, that is harassment. Should public officials expect to get some harassment? Sure. I'm certainly not well known like the First Lady of France, but people occasionally write harassing things on my own channels, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or other places. Hey, TJ, you're not really TJ Walker, you're Joe Biden. Okay. Maybe I do look like an 82-year-old balding man. That isn't true, but does it really cause me any mental stress or bother? No, I just think it's funny, and typically I ignore it, or I just say, thanks for thinking I look like a world statesman. So I think most of the time for most people, you have to go into this with an attitude of just laugh it off or ignore it. But it's easy for you and me just to say ignore it. We don't have people coming up to us every single day, our family, our friends, our kids' friends coming and say, is it true that, TJ is really Joe Biden's great-grandfather who was a murderer? Well, no one's saying that. And yet that's essentially what's happening to the First Lady of France, where everywhere she turns, everyone in her life she feels like is talking about this. And she has to be extraordinarily careful with everything she wears and says and does and moves in public. And I do feel some sympathy for her. I really do. Do I want to go so far as to say it's illegal to criticize or make fun of public officials? No. Some of the United States would like that. Am I saying you should punish a TV network or a social media platform that allows criticism of a public official? No. But like with everything in life, there is some line. I can't tell you exactly where it is. If it's one time you say, oh, I heard TJ's really was born Thelma. Somebody says that once, who cares? But if it's again and again and again, and you're reaching millions and millions and tens of millions of people, and collectively, over time, hundreds of millions of people, it does start to transform the reality and existence for a lot of people, including the person you target. Now, if you want to spread that rumor about me, be my guest. I'd be happy that many people were talking about me. But it is different if you are the leader or a member of the first family of a major and significant country, which she is. Now, what is going to happen in our own United States to this commentator, Candace Owens? I have to tell you, I looked at her really for the first time the other day. She does seem to be a real nasty piece of work, going on and on and on, alleging something that is just made up. It's as if I said Donald Trump was secretly born a woman and he has been a pedophile his whole life. Well, maybe not the last part, maybe isn't as crazy. But for me to just say that again and again and again, regardless of all the facts saying, no, Donald Trump was in fact born a man, all the evidence suggests that, his birth certificate says that, it would be crazy. And yet that is essentially what this Candace Owens has done. Now, there is one other little tidbit here, an extra wrinkle. Part of the allegations is that Brigitte Macron was a pedophile. Here's where it gets a little tricky, a little icky. She met Macron when she was an adult woman in her 30s or maybe even early 40s with a child the same age as Macron. She met him when he was 15 years old. Who knows when things really got consummated, but it's certainly credible. The idea that perhaps those two got together romantically before he was of the legal age of consent. Now, I don't know what the age of consent was in France 35 years ago, but certainly by basic U.S. norms, cultural norms, you could make the case it's a little bit sketchy. But that's not the main charge against her. The charge is that she is actually a man, was born a man, and that is complete, utter nonsense.